Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This reports for the 18th. Wow, what an interesting day. Yesterday, we saw the Fed chairman go to war with Donald Trump. That was interesting. Um, it's hard to justify where he's at with his claims. I mean, obviously, inflation is not anywhere near justifying where rates are. Ironically, when you had bad inflation, that they cut interest rates right before the election, which was an interesting move. So you could clearly capture the antipathy that Powell has for Trump there, and Trump was very clear about his view on him as well, and it's an interesting one because this is not. Helpful in any way, shape, or form because the reality is at a time when you need to have a little bit lower rate to help keep things from turning. It's an indication that the Fed actually wants to see poor growth situation. Very unusual. But from a reading standpoint, shakeout continuing to drop but holding price, that's actually not going to be too negative as long as it's able to hold up. Problem is, once you have that kind of negative momentum, you can push through pretty quick, and once the floodgate opens, we can see how fast selling can go as well as buy. It's a unusual one to have that move, but again, this was all about political, not necessarily economic terms. That said, you did have some negative move in oil, and the dollar's continually being battered in the sense that uh, lower dollar increasing the price for us buying foreign goods, but decreasing uh, what it costs foreigners to make up for the increase in tariffs. So it's kind of a net zero in an odd way for a lot of things, but the U.S. does get to collect a lot of that revenue. I don't know how much it'll be. We'll see what the numbers that come out to be, but will it make a dent in anything? Not so much. But the pressure on China every week this goes on is definitely going to start growing, despite their claims that it has no impact whatsoever. From an NQ standpoint, you can see also weak, but then you've got the following MBI white, so that could be muted. So the 23% at this particular stage, if we get down that way, it's not much there that's going to help keep it in place. That's sort of a problematic situation. Here from the treasuries, we're just going to be floating across sideways now as the Fed has decided to not participate. But this is a problem. Oil jumping back up. Now we're at the bottom side of that. If it continues to go, then all the benefit of that whole rhetoric, trade tariff thing that caused the dip fading away. The reality is, though, you really need to see that come back down in order for there to be a strong move that aids the economy. And that's really becomes the question. But here you can see the euro reacting continue. So this just offsets any tariffs, at least to the EU. You had the similar situation with the dollar falling to a lot of others. So it's much to do about nothing. Gold continuing its stretch. So the belief is that this is going to be massive inflationary. Now, what happens when you still keep getting readings that don't justify it? Well, yeah. But obviously, we have to pay attention to what happens to oil there. It's giving you no value whatsoever from crypto. Bitcoin holding up surprisingly well under the strong MBI white, but Magenta has clearly stayed above and rising. So uh, strong support right at that previous algo level. ETH not doing anything. It's dead in the water at this particular stage. But when we look at it from the 50K standpoint, so previous day, pretty much blase, I think is the best way to put it. It was just a lot of nothing. You had a bunch of spikes, didn't quite reach your zero levels with the multiple spikes. That's always an interesting one because usually it does lead to a breakdown later on. So that kind of puts the bias in an interesting situation. The same thing you can see it here intraday is rather chaotic, ending up pretty much in the flat zone. And I think that is more problematic for the bull side of the story at this particular stage. The only way you can really overcome it is to have a strong buy influence. Where's that going to come from? Uh, so, yeah, I'd be watching more to the downside and things, but doesn't mean we're not going to get a lot of movement back and forth because, again, options and finalizing that, and then the setup for the beginning of the next week. So, yeah, the people got to digest that whole Fed situation because it's definitely counter to growth, which is an interesting one. So take that for what it is. But all we can do is continue to follow readings. As always, anything relevant, I'll put it on the Skype chat. Have a good one. Trade well.